Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and KWBY, and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
And welcome into Life Planning 101 on this beautiful Monday morning. And we're joined, as always, by Angela Kennedy Robinson. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning, Terry. And we have a very special guest today. I have to be nice because I'm sitting right next to him, but it is my one and only husband, Brett Robinson, and so excited to have him in studio with us today because, you know, we're going to be talking about all things Medicare, and he's become kind of the guru, well, pretty much the guru at Kennedy Financial Services for everything Medicare that you could possibly want to know. And there's a lot of changes coming down the pipeline with Medicare in 2020. And, you know, you might have gotten notice about this if you have some existing plans that are going to have these changes, or you may be turning 65 and you may be looking at the Medicare system and feeling like you are just the most incompetent person in the world. Well, don't worry. Most people feel that way when they look at the Medicare system because it was created by the government. And of course, nothing's easy, right? So we've got a great show lined up today. And of course, you know, I like to every once in a while throw some humor in here. And I was looking through some cartoons this morning and I thought, you know, Medicare is not just a fun topic. So I've got to lighten the load. And I found a little cartoon. It said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but Medicare will only pay me to cut out 98% of your tumor. If you want me to remove all of it, I'll need to run your credit card for the difference." So, you know, but I thought, hey, that's a great way to start the show because that's the truth. When you have all these choices, you don't want to end up with something that you have to have your credit card ran out to make sure that you can get 100% of your tumor cut out if you need it down the road. So that's what today's show is all about. Medicare in every form and fashion, and you know, being able to hopefully get all your questions answered. Please know that if you do have additional questions throughout the show or after the show, you can always email us at kennedy-financial.com. Just go on to our website and ask your questions. We want them because I promise you there's someone else out there that has these same questions, and we can always bring them back up on the show next week to answer them because Medicare is a very important topic. You know, you've got 10,000 people a day turning 65 years old, and it's becoming prevalent in their life. And so you need to understand it. You deserve to understand it. But more so, you deserve to be able to get the Medicare choices that are out there and pick what's best for you. So, with all that being said, let's present our special guest, Mr. Brett Robinson, our very own at Kennedy Financial Services Medicare specialist. Tell us, what is Medicare?
Well, that's a good question. And first of all, this morning, I was glad to hear that I'm the one and only husband. So that was good news. I was scared there for a second. Medicare, you know, when you're at different places in your life, maybe you're getting close to the Medicare age, the open enrollment, which is that age 65, that special birthday, where you get more birthday cards than you'll ever get in your life. And the problem is, those cards, you don't know where they're coming from. And actually, the scary thing is, you can get, let's say there's companies in Florida that sell Medicare supplement plans. What they can do is they can run a list in Texas, and they can get your information, and they can send you mailers trying to help guide you or sell you a plan. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the big picture is this, is you want to make sure that when you make your buying decision, you make an educated buying decision. And I like to look at it like you're buying a car. You go in there and you talk to the car salesman, and while you're there, you want to make sure that after you get excited about either the price or the bells and whistles and whatever it is on that car, when you drive off that lot, that's your car. You may have some options to trade it in, you may not. It just depends on what happens to that car after you drive off of there. And your supplement's going to be the same thing when you supplement Medicare. And I think, first of all, what we want to do is break down Medicare. Is
Yeah,
that right?
I think let's take a back seat, because obviously I think the most interested listeners, which by the way, those interested listeners are going to be the ones turning 65 really quickly, and that they have this top of mind. But if you're already taking Medicare, this is a show for you too, because you may learn something that you need to get some things changed now before it's too late. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, but make sure you're listening to what's going on. But yes, I do think, understanding what really the 4 parts of Medicare are, so that people really get a good grasp on that. It's a great place to start.
Well, you have the parts of Medicare. You're going to have your Part A. That's your hospital insurance. And again, we can get into more detail on all these, but your Part A is going to be your hospital insurance. Your Part B is going to be your medical insurance. And then outside of that...
And those are through the government.
That's through the government. That's Medicare. That is correct. And then your other part is going to be your Plan D, and that's going to be for your prescription drugs. Then a fourth part would be outside the government, would be a Medicare Advantage plan. It's also known as a Part C, if you hear of a Part C being mentioned. There's the 4 parts of those, and understanding with Medicare, you're going to have the Part A, and then you're going to need to sign up for the Part B, and that gets in the steps of what you need to do. And then there's the supplement that is going to be for outside of what the government doesn't pay. It's going to be for that 2% of that tumor you need to run your credit card for.
Gotcha. Okay, so, you talked about Part C, Advantage plans, and Part D, and I know Part D is often included in that Part C. Can you talk a little bit to that Part C, what exactly that Advantage plan is?
Yeah, and it goes back to, there's more details to this, and you really got to look at the plan, and price isn't everything. It's always something to consider. But you got to look at when you need something. When we have insurance and we buy any type of insurance, the whole idea is if you're in a car accident and you have insurance, you hope you have the right insurance. You may want collision. If it's your fault and you need to cover something, then you don't want it to come out of pocket. And when you're looking at your Medicare, your supplement, or insurance, it's the same mindset. So the Part C, the Advantage plan, what you want to make sure that you're able to do is get the coverage you want and need when you need it. So what that means is it's going to have limitations, I guess you would say, meaning you're going to use your PPO, your HMO. You're going to have it covered in your area. Maybe you live in a more rural area, and for example, where we live is you may have to drive to be able to get that coverage versus having it available in your backyard. So you want to make sure you look at that. If you're somebody that's in retirement and you probably do more traveling, you're going to want to make sure that wherever you end up, if you need coverage, you're going to have that. The enticing thing about the Advantage plan is the premiums are lower to begin with. And the premiums stay lower, but the problem is you're out of pocket later when you need it. Could be more. It just depends on your situation and really where your health takes you later in life. But you just want to be careful that you don't put yourself in a position to pay less now, pay more later.
Yeah, and we're going to take a quick break, but I want to, when we come back, to make sure and touch on this Advantage plan, because we just had a client that we called around on with his doctors, and there were, I think, 90% of the doctors that weren't going to take him on an Advantage plan that he's been using for over a decade. And so I want to touch on that a little bit more and really have you break down the difference between an Advantage plan and the other way you can go about Medicare, which is through a Part D and a supplement, and talk about those differences. But we're going to take a quick break right here on Life Planning 101. More on everything you need to know about Medicare when we come back. Welcome back to Life Planning 101. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services, joined by Brett Robinson of Kennedy Financial Services. Yes, we are married, but that's not to talk about today. I was told I cannot say any spousal jokes. So, with all being said, we're talking about Medicare today. What a boring topic, but before we left the show, it is extremely important for you to understand your options, and we were talking about an Advantage plan, and we were recently assessing an Advantage plan over a Medicare gap plan, this last month for a client, and he has 2 homes, and he sees doctors in one home versus another, and about 90% of his doctors weren't going to be in the Advantage plan because it was an HMO, and that's a high risk. And you talked about travel and how that's, that can actually happen to people that are traveling, and I think it's important for people to know, even if you're on Medicare today, you're going to be called by these Advantage plan salesmen to say, we're going to lower your prices on your Medicare drastically. But then come to find out, what are the things you need to look for?
Yeah, it all goes back to having the right questions to ask. So on the front, the big print looks really nice. My gosh, I'm going from this premium to this premium. But it's the smaller print of what's taken away from you and what's not going to be covered, and knowing the right questions of, am I going to travel this next year, and where am I going to go, and am I going to take the time, if I do travel, to call all doctors in that area so that I know where I can go when I get there. And that, I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound like a vacation to me. So that's something you want to be real careful with.
Yeah, and if I can, of course, here I am looking up jokes this morning. There was a question and answer of, I joined a new HMO. How difficult would it be to choose the doctor I want? And the answer was, just slightly more difficult than choosing your parents. Your insurer will provide you with a book of listing of all doctors who are participating at the same time the information was gathered, and it basically falls into 2 categories of doctors. One that are no longer taking patients, and those who will see you but aren't part of the plan. But don't worry, the remaining doctor who is still in the plan is accepting new patients and has an office that's just half a day's drive away.
Yeah. So, we're not saying that the Advantage plan, also known as the Part C, isn't right for some folks. We're just saying that we've never had anybody that when they needed insurance ever had too much. And you got to keep that in mind, is you're buying the insurance for when you need it. And yes, of course, everybody has to look at budget and see what that is. But at the end of the day, when you need it, budget comes into play then just as well as it does every month when you're making the premiums on that. And another thing to keep in mind is when we talk about supplements, and this does get confusing, and that's why we encourage you to sit down with somebody and go through and really get direction on the difference of these. But a supplement and a gap, they're called Medicare supplement or a Medicare gap plan, is along with your Medicare. That's to supplement what Medicare doesn't pay. The Advantage plan is a standalone. So the most important thing to know is you don't have the 2 together. You have one or the other, and they both have coverage, but they have different ways that they handle the coverage.
Gotcha. And I know, a lot of people we talk to retirees every day, Advantage plan or Medigap plan, and a lot of it is how many doctors you see or will see in the future. There's lots of jokes that run around about my new life is I go to the doctor every day. Well, if you're on an Advantage plan, then you're going to have co-pays every day. Well, $20 co-pays 5 days a week is $100 a week. That's a lot of copay.
Well, with that in mind, and like she said, we visit with a lot of folks that are retirees and are on different plans, and there's different stories that we hear throughout our planning. And when you hear, my gosh, when I go to the doctor, I don't have to worry about anything. Everything is taken care of for me. That's great to hear. They're saying that with a smile. Even after they had to go to the doctor, they didn't have to deal with something afterwards. Or you hear the story of, I went and I don't even know if they're going to cover it, and I had to call ahead of time. So those are the things that you just need to prepare yourself. And on the back end, we've experienced this, and we know what it's like for you to be able to go through the experience of it being painless and taken care of for you.
Yeah, so on the opposite side, when we talk about Medigap or Medicare supplement, you say that fills in all the holes of Part A and Part B, and you said you have to buy your drug plan separately. And there is so many Medigap plans, and I think this is where some of the changes are occurring in 2020. So will you talk a little bit to, these plans, what you typically recommend for a client when you're looking at this and why?
Well, the first question is, what do you want to hold on yourself as far as responsibility for paying? You can share do a sharing in the plan, and that's going to lower your premium. But just like the Advantage plan, there's going to be a Medigap plan that allows you to share in the expenses if you go. So you're going to have a lower premium, but more out of pocket later in co-pays. Or you can get more an all-inclusive where you go into the doctor and you walk out and you don't pay for anything. Now, that is changing in 2020 to a slight degree to where there's the plans. And I'll throw letters out there, but there's a Plan F that is currently available and is going away in 2020. And that's going to cover everything all the way down to the Part B deductible. That's really going to be replaced by what's called the Plan G. Does everything that F does except for pay for the deductible. So the way to cost affect that in is just to be able to take the cost of the deductible. It's a one-time deductible. In 2019, that's $185. So you go to the doctor one time, you're going to pay that deductible. The next time you go that year, you don't have to pay that deductible anymore.
So the max is $185.
It's $185. Okay. That's correct for the deductible. So that's your max out of pocket outside of your premium. There's a Plan N that's going to be able to lower your premiums, but then again, you're going to have some co-pays, and it just depends on the breakdown of the cost of what your visit is. But every time you go, you're going to have some co-pays available. And then there's the big kicker of not paying the extra above what Medicare, the doctor is able to charge, so they can go over. And if there's any excess charges, that's when it gets dangerous, that you don't know exactly what that bill is going to be, and you could have more out of pocket there.
Is there a max, like a max out of pocket on that plan, or is there anything that caps that, or is that just truly like, eek?
Well, the cap is going to be, and we'll have to look at this more specific, but the cap is going to be more on what is allowed by Medicare to be able to charge, and then anything over that is going to be, the scary part to be ready for.
Yeah, okay. So it's really important to know these plans, and I want to get more into this, and I also want to talk to, existing plan holders when we come back right here on Life Planning 101, so you don't want to miss it. All right, we are back on Life Planning 101. We don't have a minute to waste. We are talking about Medicare, everything you need to know from the basics. We've covered Advantage plans. We've covered Medicare gap policies, and my gosh, there's A through N, but not A through N, and we have F going away, and we have C going away in 2020. And what does that mean for people that are currently holding F and C plans?
Well, you're fine. You don't have to make any changes.
You're good to go.
You're good to go. You're grandfathered in, I guess, is the best way to say that is you're on the plan that you're on, and it's not going to go away for the current policy holders. It's going to be for those that enroll new in 2020 going forward. The Plan F's not going to be available. But again, don't be afraid, because you really have the Plan F. The only difference is the G is going to do the deductible is on you, not on the plan. And at the end of the day, premium-wise, that ends up, when you calculate that in, there's going to be in comparison to or even less than the Plan F. So you really get the same coverage. You're just going to have to be aware of the first time you go in, you're going to have that deductible.
Right. And F is kind of considered the Cadillac of plans. That's like when you go on Medicare, all you pay is your premiums, and that's it. You don't pay anything out of pocket ever.
Yeah, you just want to... you're taken care of is the best way. It's that peace of mind that you have all the emergency vehicles there ready and available for you on your plan, and you don't have to pay out of pocket for them.
Yeah, and another thing I want to talk about, and this goes for existing policy holders that are still getting rewritten, because I do know that there's a rule. Once you are uninsurable, you are stuck with what you have, right?
That is right. Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't matter what it is. You're stuck with what you have. Okay, so if you are stuck with what you have, my opinion is when you roll off that lot, go back to your car analogy, you want to make sure that you're in the car that's going to run 300,000 miles, not the one that's going to honk out on you at 60,000 miles, right?
Yeah, as complicated as it may sound, and again, put together by the government, it can make it complicated. It's actually very simple. A Plan F that's, of course, is going away is a Plan F no matter what company you're with. A Plan G is a Plan G, has the same coverage no matter what company you're going with. Now, the foundation of the company, and there's a lot of them out there, maybe what's the different part of that. So when we look at this type of coverage.
Because of pricing?
Well, because of pricing or just because of that along with the type of company that they are.
Right.
For example, if you're buying your new car, let's just say you buy a new car and they tout that it gets 20 miles a gallon, but they forget to tell you that that's only for the first year. The second year, it goes to 10 miles a gallon.
Ouch.
And you didn't know that or didn't read that on the disclosure. So some companies, you just think about it, if you're going to be guaranteed issue, that means every company has to guarantee coverage whether you are insurable or not insurable at that age 65 open enrollment window. The only way to entice you, or the best way to entice you, is with price. So they may have the lowest price out of the gate, but what you want to do is make sure that you've done the research to know that, hey, year 2, 3, 5, they aren't the company that is known for the biggest rate hikes down the road. And that's not a problem because you can get a new Medicare supplement if you're able to go through underwriting. If you're not, then that's when you're stuck with that new rate, that same company, because you do not want to get rid of it once you have it.
Right. And we find that all the time. We found older supplements that were written by less quality carriers. And, you could look at the pricing versus what it would be with some quality carrier. And it's tremendously different at age 75 versus 65. And the quality carrier that was more expensive right in the beginning is now much, much less than the other carriers.
Right. All carriers are going to go up. So you're not going to be locked in. All carriers are going to go up in price. You just want to make sure that when you get one that, again, it's just in case you can't be underwritten, you can be taken care of down the road if you have to stay with that company.
Right. Well, we are out of time on everything Medicare. Thank you so much, Brett Robinson, for joining us on the show here at Life Planning 101 and giving our listeners some great information. I hope you pass this along to everybody that's turning 65, that's over 65, because Medicare is confusing, and that is why we have vested ourselves for over 30 years in the Medicare world, because we know how important it is for you to have the right coverage, because it affects your overall picture when it comes to cost. So make sure you know what your options are, you know what you're getting into, you know what your risks are, and so you can make that good footing forward as you enter retirement, and you can live life on purpose, as we always say. My name is Angela Robinson with Kennedy Financial Services. God bless everyone and have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and KWBY, and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Calton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.